Part of a golden retriever.
That's in honor of you, Melissa Berryman. Welcome back, everybody. It's Frankie Boyer, and Melissa is with us today as one of the world's most renowned dog specialists. First of all, she was an animal control officer, and she's a national dog bite consultant who works with rescue groups, dog owners, and bite victims, and she's also designs and teaches a safety and liability class for dog owners, from which People Training for Good Dogs is derived, her book, and she has worked with more than 10,000 dogs, and it's nice to have you back.
Thanks so much for having me back. I love the intro. That was great.
Isn't that great? Okay, so let's get some stuff right off the bat. There are those of us who absolutely love our dogs, and we treat them as though they were like a member of the family.
They are.
Good. Okay, so you don't have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with that. I just want people to be aware that legally and culturally we haven't kept up. Plus, we, in thinking them as valued members of a family, we expect them to act and react like people do. And they just don't have the brain capacity for it.
Yes.
If you think of it, our brain has a lot of stuff, and then some. You know, the dogs don't have that, and then some. So we can't set them up like we are, and that's where we're getting into trouble.
So one of the best pieces of information, when you see a dog that you think is... I happen to take care of a golden doodle who is the cutest, sweetest dog in the world. He is just precious. And everybody wants to... They just run over to him, and he is a very good-natured, sweet dog, and he doesn't have a problem with them coming at him at all different directions, where my dog, who died many years ago, was a black chow chow, and she would freak over that. She didn't bite anybody, but she didn't like it. She got very upset.
Right. Part of what's going on, too, is that he's also a puppy, and puppies can only take it, you know, and as they get older, some of them say, hey, I don't want this stranger to molest me. And as we teach children to not allow strangers to approach them and touch them, we still haven't translated that to the dogs. And so we really have to, as dog owners, take control of how we allow people to interact with our animals. And so I have this wonderful, simple little way of doing so. It's called the Ask the Dog program. If you want to pet me, just ask me. And it's not ask the owner, it's ask the dog. You tap your leg, act friendly, and the dog can decide whether it wants to be touched or not.
Okay, so you tap your thigh?
Yeah, tap like you're wagging your tail. And it gives the dog an indication of what you are, because they're always trying to figure out, are you friend, foe, or prey? And they tell that by how you act. So if you're like happy and animated, higher pitched voice, tapping the leg, the dog gets the opportunity to say, yeah, I'd like to be petted, or hey, I really don't want to be touched today. And we're like that too. I don't like when strangers come up and touch me.
Most parents, though, Melissa, teach kids to put their hands out.
Right. I don't know where that came from, because people keep saying to me, they always tell you that, and I don't know who they are. But we have to change this culture. We have to start taking responsibility, because as dog owners, we're getting in trouble for other people's actions. So we have to start educating. And so I started the Dog Owner Education and Community Safety Council so that we could all get together as like a block and change the culture.
Okay, one of the things that makes me crazy, really crazy, a couple of things. It was cold the other day, very cold out. I drove up to my nephew's house, and he had a lot of people, a lot of company, a lot of in-laws and people from out of town and all that. And I drive up, and I'm hearing this weird banging, and I'm looking around, and I don't see anything around. And I'm like, I don't hear barking. I just hear rumbling and noises. And then I heard the crying, dogs crying. And I'm like, where are those dogs? And so they were in the car that I pulled up next to. And even though it was cold out, the window was not open. And I went ballistic. I went in the house, like in a tither. I'm like, there are dogs in a car, they're crying, and the window is not open. What's going on, and why are these dogs in a car? It just was like, not even hi, how are you? I was absolutely beside myself. So I don't understand why people do not leave windows open for dogs. Do they not understand they need air even in the winter?
I was an animal officer, and I've seen everything.
And I'm one of those people that will call 911 on you. And at any time of the year, if I'm in a mall and I come somewhere and I see something that's not right, believe me, I'm opening my mouth.
That's great. Now we need to open our mouths about some of this other stuff that gets us in trouble. You told me before about your story about your dog when she was a puppy, and you got in trouble because a 10-week-old puppy was exuberant with a person that was really afraid of dogs.
That's right, and a lawyer, mind you.
And then he went way to the extreme.
He went to the extreme, and my dog had to be quarantined. She was a puppy, and if you saw her, she was a fluff ball at 10 weeks old. Her name was Tutu. She was just a fluff ball. And she had one strike against her. And her entire 13 and a half years, I had to constantly make sure. And I was always on the defensive with her. Always, always, always. I always had to be ready to protect her in case anything like that ever happened again.
I hate the situation that occurred, but what I love is that you protected your dog, and that's the way I want dog owners to be, is to, not think of their dog as something might happen where the dog might do something. I'm worried about what somebody's going to do to your dog, because the dogs can only respond to how we treat them and what situations we put them in, and they only have what was given to them, and what was given to them was not to live with us. It's to survive out in the wild. So I always want dog owners to be on the defensive. I have a class where I teach people to block strangers from coming up and touching their dog. And it's difficult because we've been conditioned to be so nice to strangers, but then they're the first people that can sue us. And I'm not saying that, I'm sensitive to people being afraid of dogs and having bad things happen, but we do, again, use fundamental attribution error, which is we don't look at situation and context. So if I was bitten in one situation, doesn't mean that another dog in another situation is going to be the same.
Yes, and by the way, we want people to know that there are certain breeds that people, they get they get a real attitude. There's this predisposition. Shepherds, Dobermans, Chows, and
definitely pit bulls.
Pit bulls, yeah, that
Rottweilers. Dobermans. Yeah. Remember the 70s where everybody was terrified of Dobermans, and we get it in our minds because part of the way we were designed was to watch out for the saber-toothed tiger. So that's a part of our survival. So it's easy for us to forget what's going on in the present and just make these assumptions that something's going to hurt us and be really defensive about it. And the news picks up on, the one or two incidents that aren't great, but something happened, and generally in any dog bite injury, I can tell the victim one or two things that could have avoided the bite altogether or lessened the severity of it if they had just kind of used their head a little bit instead of buying into some of the media characterizations of that a dog's like just out to get them.
Right. And the other problem I have, Melissa, and I would love for you to address this, why do certain people think it's okay to keep their dogs tied up morning, noon, and night?
It's the same people who have children who really shouldn't have children either. And we're selling that a dog is one thing when it's really another. And so when people get the dog, the biggest shockers are how much work they take. I have a daycare program, a boarding program. Not only do the dogs run around all day, and they're out from 7 to 5:30, I go out in the woods for 5 miles where they're running off leash. And that's the type of exercise that a lot of these animals need.
They need and demand. I mean...
and they also need us to work with them, to have a relationship with them. And I teach everybody in the family, because like with horses, if I teach somebody to ride, it doesn't mean anybody else can ride.
And real quickly, we need to give your website, because we're almost out of time. And you say, do not hug dogs. They don't like to be hugged?
They hate being hugged. It's domination to them, not love and affection. So we're different animals, and different things mean different things.
And the best website is?
It's the one for the Dog Owner Education and Community Safety Council is DOESCS.org, and then mine is PTFGD.com.
Oh, we thank you, Melissa Berryman. And we will be back in just a moment. Stay tuned. This is Frankie Boyer.
Are your vitamins not doing the job? Introducing C-Veg, the newest nutritional super...